All right, let's dive in. We need to talk about messiness. I mean, the messiness of our world, our lives, and yeah, even the mess inside ourselves. It can feel, well, just totally overwhelming. But what if there's some incredible wisdom hidden right in the middle of all that chaos?
You've asked this, right? I think we all have. You look around, you switch on the news, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, and you just wonder, why can't things be simpler, cleaner? Why can't we just, fix it all?
Deep down, we all want that pristine lawn, that perfect, orderly life where all the bad stuff, all the weeds, are just gone. But our reality, it often feels a lot more like a jungle, right? And our first instinct, our deepest desire, is to just charge out there and start yanking those weeds out. But what if an ancient story is telling us that that might be the absolute worst thing we could possibly do?
Okay, so let's jump back about 2,000 years to a story that gives us a completely radical way to think about this whole problem. It's basically a first-century thriller about botanical sabotage.
It all starts out simply enough. You've got a good farmer, he goes out and he sows his field with top-quality wheat seed. Everything's looking great, exactly as planned.
But then, the plot thickens. Under the cover of darkness, while everyone's asleep, an enemy with a grudge sneaks into that very same field, and he's there to commit what is essentially an act of ancient agricultural warfare.
Now this is the really clever and crucial part. The enemy doesn't just throw down any old weeds. No, he sows darnel, which is this toxic weed that, in its early stages, looks identical to wheat. It's a perfect botanical doppelganger specifically designed to grow completely undetected right alongside the good stuff.
So, when the farmhands spot the weeds popping up, they do what any of us would do. They offer to go in and rip them all out. But the master of the field gives this stunning, completely counterintuitive command. Don't touch them. Leave them alone. Now, to our weed-pulling instincts, this just sounds like pure madness. But it turns out, he's not just being patient. He's being a brilliant scientist.
And this is where it gets really fascinating, because modern botany shows us exactly why that farmer was so incredibly wise. This isn't just a nice metaphor. It's actually a lesson in agronomy.
So the key concept here is something called the rhizosphere. The best way to think of it is like a busy underground city, where the roots of all the different plants are tangled up together. They're not in neat little separate rows. They're an interconnected, codependent system.
So here's what happens. When you try to yank out that darned e-nail, you're not just pulling one plant, you are violently ripping apart that entire shared root network. This completely destroys the soil structure, it exposes the delicate wheat roots to the air, and it causes the very thing you were trying to save to just wither and die. I mean, you can't perform surgery on a field with a sledgehammer.
Okay, so the crucial point here is that this botanical reality has an absolutely stunning parallel inside our own minds. This isn't just about farming anymore, this is about the very nature of who we are. The great psychologist Carl Jung had a name for this. He called it our shadow. These are the parts of ourselves we don't really like, the anger, the ego, the envy. And Jung's incredible insight was that if we try to violently suppress the shadow, to just rip it out of us, it doesn't go away. In fact, it just gets stronger.
And you know what? Modern psychology totally backs this up with something called the white bear effect. You can try this right now. For the next 10 seconds, whatever you do not think about a white bear. It's almost impossible, right? The research shows that the more you try to suppress a thought, the more it just keeps popping up. Forcefully trying to uproot our inner weeds is often completely counterproductive.
And here's why this is so tricky. A lot of the time, our best traits and our worst traits grow from the exact same root. Let's take ambition, for example. That single root can produce the wheat of a healthy, high-achieving drive, but it can also produce the tares of cutthroat ruthlessness. If you try to just rip out the ruthlessness, you might just kill the very drive that makes you successful in the first place. They are completely intertwined.
So all of this brings us to the final and most profound lesson of the story. And this is about way more than just patience. It's about perspective and a really deep, surprising kind of humility.
And get this, for some amazing historical context. Sowing darnel in someone's field, that wasn't just a thing in a story. It was a real, actual crime recognized under Roman law. People knew darnel was toxic. If you ate bread made from it, it could make you dizzy, sick, sometimes even blind. This was serious business.
So when the master says, let them grow, he isn't being soft on evil. He's not saying, oh, the weeds are fine. What he is fundamentally saying is this: I am fully aware of how toxic and dangerous these weeds are, but my love for the wheat and my desire to protect it is greater than my hatred for the weeds. It's this incredible, radical calculation of value.
But then, how do you ever separate them? Well, here comes the twist ending. Remember, you can't tell them apart when they're young and growing. The difference only becomes obvious at the very, very end, at the harvest, when you look at their heads.
And this is just a beautiful final image. As the wheat matures, its head becomes heavy with valuable grain, and because of that weight, it physically bows down. But the darnel? Having produced absolutely nothing of value, it remains light, empty, and stands up straight, tall, and proud. In the end, the good stuff is identified by its substance, by its weightiness, by its humility. And that really leaves us with the ultimate question. The story shifts from some field out there to the field right here, inside of us. It invites us to be a little more patient with our own messiness, to value the good that's growing, and ultimately to ask ourselves, when all is said and done, what will our life's work produce? Will it be heavy with substance, bowing in humility, or will it be light, empty, and standing in pride? In the end, what will your harvest reveal?